him with a bouquet of flowers. Shri Ravi Shankar Prasad ji. We'd also like to welcome Mr. Hasnul Haq Inu, Honorable Minister for Information from Bangladesh. Mr. Sam Seok Ko, Standing Commissioner, Korean Communications Commission. Mr. Kieu Kanharit, Honorable Minister for Information, Cambodia Communications Commission. Honorable Justice Chandramouli Kumar Prasad, Chairman of the Press Council of India. And Dr. Venkat Iyer, the media law expert based in Northern Ireland. He's a practicing barrister and a legal academic. He's led initiatives on broadcasting in several developing countries. He's also a trained mediator, and he facilitates dispute resolution in the media and entertainment industry. He's also the coordinator for this session, and I'll hand you over to him.
It's not often that media law and ethics is given the prominence that has been accorded in this Asia Media Summit. And I'm particularly pleased that we have a distinguished panel to discuss this topic. It would, I think, be fair to say that there is a wide consensus on at least two broad fronts, the first of which is the inescapable need for media regulation, and secondly, the inevitability of divergent approaches to media regulation across national boundaries. Now, I suppose one of the points I'd like to make at the beginning is that perhaps not enough attention has been given to the need to differentiate between the role of law and the role of ethics in media regulation, and the respective approaches that need to be adopted towards each. And some of that confusion, or at any rate insufficient understanding, came through quite stark in the very heated recent debate over Cambridge Analytica and, of course, the role of social media. It has also come to the fore on a number of previous occasions, notably in my own country, when we had a period of soul-searching over what came to be called the phone hacking scandal. I thought, therefore, that it would be appropriate if we spent some time on this issue and we looked at how each of the countries that is represented on this panel has fared in making the distinction between media law and ethics as applied to real-life situations. I suspect as well that in the course of this session, there will be references to other hot topics such as fake news, the role of criminal defamation, the fate of public service broadcasting, the manner in which business regulation has to be applied to the media, and of course, inevitably, to the legal and ethical challenges that are posed by social media. What I intend to do is initially ask each of our panelists to speak for hopefully 5 to 7 minutes, just by way of introductory remarks, and then to have a conversation around some of these themes. I'm told as well that there will be opportunities for members of the audience to ask questions. That will probably take us to the end of the session at about 12:30. So can I first invite Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad to make his introductory remarks. I'll take 10 minutes. Okay, sure. Thank you.
Distinguished Minister of India, the great INB Minister. I did not tell her name, you all have heard about it. His Majesty, His Excellency Mr. Hassanul Haqqano, the Distinguished Minister from Bangladesh, Mr. Kane Kanaharit, Distinguished Minister from Mr. Sam Senko, the Distinguished Vice Minister from Korea, Honorable Justice C.K. Prasad, Chairman of Press Council, Mr. Iyer, ladies and gentlemen. It is a very interesting topic on which I would like to speak wearing many hats. First and foremost, as the former Information Broadcasting Minister of India, which is presently being held with distinction by Smriti Irani, a distinguished colleague. Second, as a lawmaker. Thirdly, as a law minister. Fourthly, as an activist from my student life, dealing with media and firmly believing in media independence. And lastly, as a person who has been the spokesperson and chief spokesperson of my party, and also now act as the spokesperson of the government. Ladies and gentlemen, what has been the Indian experience would be enlightening for you to understand how we are handling it. Freedom of press is integral to our polity. In the freedom struggle, it was a partner in arms. And when India's constitution was created, our founding fathers clearly said, freedom of speech and expression is fundamental, and freedom of media flows from there. And thereafter, our courts, in particular, established this principle in decision after decision, going to the extent of saying that whatever rights are available to the citizens of India is available to the media. And the fundamental right of speech and expression is subject to reasonable restriction in the interest of sovereignty, integrity of India, the safety of India, public order and decency, morality, non-incitement to violence, respecting contempt of court and defamation. This principle of reasonable restriction, which must be proximate, not illusory, has come to be recognized as a part of India's democratic governance. And therefore, we in India, in spite of all the diversity, respect freedom of media, freedom of expression. And to my political colleagues and friends, I always say the media has the right to inform, the right to circulate, the right to disseminate, the right to empower, the right to criticize, the right to counsel, the right to advise. This is how we see the role of the media. Some of my colleagues have problem with cartoons. I always say, fun, pun, humor, cartoon are parts of democracy. And we learn to respect that. I have one problem of late that now I am also becoming a part of that cartooning process. I love it, except to gently remind them, don't concentrate too much on my nose. There are other things also to be taken note of. Now, friends, how we have seen the Indian scenario, it may be one thing more. In many ways, business is also a part of media. Therefore, the laws of business are equally accountable to you in terms of copyright, in terms of central excise customs laws, and a whole range of other laws which govern them. But if these laws are used in a manner to impinge upon freedom of press, the courts have taken a very serious view. Let me tell you a little about India's news story. We are very newsy people. There was a readership survey in 2017. Readership in India saw a 40% increase with 40 million urban readers and 70 million rural readers. That is in case of newspaper. Magazines between 14 and 17 saw 75% increase in their readership. India is home to only 882 TV channels, about 200 of which are news channels. Many are 24/7 news channels. There are 99,660 newspapers and periodicals. Now in this slide, there is the conventional media, which is governed by the Press Council Act, and the distinguished chairman of the Press Council, retired Justice of the Supreme Court, Justice C.K. Prasad is here, will explain about that. Then there is the television media. Then there is the digital media. Now, how I see it, we in India have always celebrated diversity. And we in India have also appreciated how our people are getting informed and mature by this proliferation of media. News, magazine, newspapers, televisions in all the languages, and now digital media. I will speak a little about digital media. You know, what is the digital profile of India? A population of 1.30 billion has only 1.1 billion mobile phones, 500 million smartphones, and we have got 1.20 billion Aadhaar card, the digital identity to supplement the physical identity. Under the dynamic leadership of our Prime Minister, Digital India program has been initiated. What is Digital India? Designed to empower ordinary Indians with the power of technology. And today, we are setting new benchmarks of digital inclusion, bridging the digital divide between the digital haves and digital have-nots. How we are doing it? Just one example. We opened 300 million plus bank account for the poor, underprivileged. We linked that to Aadhaar, the digital identity, to authenticate it. Seeded to the mobile phone, and started sending funds directly to a bank account of the poor, of the underprivileged, of the various entitlement. Do you know how much we have saved? Only 83,000 crores, close to $10 billion, which used to be pocketed by middlemen and fictitious claimants. Digital governance is good governance. From healthcare to education, to empowerment, to delivery, we are doing that. But there is a large I would like to mention about internet, which Mr. Iyer alluded to. Internet is one of the finest creations of human mind, but it cannot remain the monopoly of human. Second, if internet is to be global, it must have linkage with the local ideas, local culture. Internet cannot become a tool of neo-imperialism. These views are important. Internet to be available, in the expansion of which friends of the media houses, academia, industry have played a role, have to be safe and secure, and where the role of the government comes. If we talk of the internet, we are talking of a virtual world without any geographical boundary. But the problems of the virtual world have to be replied to in the real world. That is the biggest which we have to address. In this connection, digital media is speaking up very fast. We need to acknowledge one thing. This is the age of information. Information is power. This is the age of technology. Technology is power. Technology blending with the right to know and right to be informed is creating a seamless, mindless world where three elements have become most important. News is spontaneous, and the border between the local and the global withering away. This is how we have to work. I have to only now lay down 3-4 cautions here. We in India are fully appreciative of the role of social media. Ladies and gentlemen, you must know India has the biggest footprint of Facebook, of Twitter, of WhatsApp movement. We welcome that. I don't want to give you certain data. It is mind-boggling. Today, ordinary poor Indians, even in villages, are sending WhatsApps. And we appreciate that empowerment. But what is important is, do we segregate the real from the dangerous? That is, as far as I'm concerned, our government is committed to the freedom of media. Many of us who are in the government today have fought against a notorious emergency when freedom was thought to be trampled upon. And that commitment remains firm. We self-regulation. But the media has to understand that no institution in democracy should remain unaccountable. We have got an IT Act where we have framed a regulation for intermediary that you must ensure that the content going through you is not dangerous, is not libelous, does not impinge upon security and integrity of the country. You don't encroach upon copyrights. You don't promote child pornography and other naked pornography. And other things are there. I think the intermediaries have to understand that point very clearly. The second thing is, privacy is important. Supreme Court has held privacy as a part of fundamental right. But privacy, the plea of privacy, cannot become the shield of the corrupt and the terrorist. Therefore, on issue of terrorism, on the issue of propagation of hatred, on the issue of communalizing things, on the issue of promoting extremism, there has to be a global consensus. And that global consensus has to be properly enforced. I'll briefly talk on data and then I'll conclude. But remember one thing very important. We support social media. It has empowered ordinary Indians and the ordinary global citizens to have a voice. If anything wrong is there, even by the editors, they ask questions. They ask questions from me. But one issue I have to throw it today here for your consideration. If there is, on the issue of terrorism, extremism, money laundering, I can understand. But the language on the social media at times being used is something which is a cause of concern. How do we take care of that? I'm a firm believer in the independence of ordinary people on social media. But how to take care of this responsibility is an issue to consider. Mr. Iyer, you talked about data and recent developments. I have set up a committee headed by a distinguished retired Supreme Court judge on the issue of data. We are going to come soon with an idea of a very robust data protection law. But my view on data is very clear. India is becoming a big center of data analysis as the world is. We have to have a proper coordination between data availability, data utility, data innovation, data anonymity, and data privacy. If a government wants to have data as to why in a particular area illness is there, that data must be available, but the data must be anonymous. And therefore, in the Aadhaar law, which we have framed, we have very clearly said that these privacy issues need to be appreciated and respected. I would hope that all the online companies who are in the business of data privacy, data commerce, must understand these nuances. And therefore, when the Facebook issue came, and when the Cambridge Analytica issue came, I took a very firm stand that India cannot become the center of data pilferage. We are too strongly believer in freedom of elections. And data commerce cannot be, yes, I'm all for campaigning on social media platforms, but data commerce through collusive methods cannot be used to influence India's elections. That is very clear. These have been our stands. What is my concluding part? The concluding part is ethics, ethical requirement. And I think I wish to thank the organizer, media, regulations, and ethical practices they have flagged. In a free media can prosper only in an open society, democracy. Closed society, there is no freedom. Open society thrives on democracy. Accountability is integral to democracy. Any institution, the government, the court, the legislature, and the media, all have to be accountable. Ethical values flow from the platform of accountability. What, in my view, ethical journalism is? It must be fair. It must be true. It must be properly presented of sides and counter sides. And above all, it must empower you're consumers of news, and you must present in a way which is decent and also stressing upon your independence. That, in my very simple, practical view, is ethical journalism. The media of today, under the garb of sensationalism, paid news, fake news, too much of other insidious practices answering to that larger issue is a matter of debate. The government doesn't want to interfere, I'm very clear. But those who firmly believe in freedom of media and insist upon their right of respecting that also need to understand that there is something accountability also. Ethical journalism flows from that abiding value. I think if that approach is met, the real purpose of this great initiative of our government and other organizers will be held. Thank you. Namaskar. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Mr. Prasad. May I now invite Mr. Sam Seok Ko to make his presentation. I understand that he has a PowerPoint presentation, and also that Mr. Ko will present in Korean. And I'm told that the English translation of his presentation will be available on your receivers in channel 1. Thank you. Mr. Ko.
네, 신사숙녀 여러분, 그리고 압둘라리 알리 아스카리 회장님과
Respected
창진
leaders of
사무총장님,
AIBD,
그리고 인도 정보통신부 장관님, 법무부 장관님,
respected
그리고
ministers
각국에서
from
오신
India,
대표단 여러분,
respected
반갑습니다.
representatives of the countries here today.
방송통신위원회 상임위원 고삼석입니다.
I am Ko Sam-seok, standing from the KCC.
AMS에서 의제 발제를 하게 된 것을 매우
I am very pleased to be at the 2018 AMS. 1 year ago today,
출범한 바로 그날에
President was sworn into the office of the President in Korea. First, I'd like to thank you for your support for the new President and also for your support for Pyeongchang Olympics and the Inter-Korean Summit, which successfully took place in Panmunjom in the JSA, thanks to your kind wishes and support. Thank you again.
오늘 발표에서는 지난 1년 동안
Today in my presentation,
제가 경험한 혁명적 변화와
I'd like to talk about the revolutionary changes that have occurred in Korea over the past year and the role of. I'll also explain President Moon's key media policies.
2016년 10월부터
From October 2016, next, please, next.
할까요? 네. 2016년 10월부터 2017년
From
3월
October 2016 to March 2017, when former President Park was impeached, 15 million Koreans participated in candlelight vigils in Gwanghwamun in Seoul, Korea. They demanded an end to deep-rooted corruption, a fundamental improvement to the unjust policies and institutions. They asked for an end to corruption and for the creation of a fair and transparent society. During the Candlelight Revolution, the people criticized the media and broadcasting in particular for its failure to fulfill its public responsibility and for the loss of fairness in media. As you can see on this slide, released by the Reporters, it's the World Press Freedom Index. In 2006, Korean media dropped 39 places to 70th place in 2016, dropped 39 places in 10 years. During the 10 years leading up to the Moon administration, instead of monitoring those in power and out in cases of abuse, Korean broadcasters were aware of the authorities' influence and created blacklists of reporters who were critical of the authorities.
이와 같은 정치적, 사회적 상황 속에서 출범한 문재인 정부는 촛불혁명에 나타난
The administration began in the midst of this political and social situation, and the government listened to the people during the Candlelight Revolution and was given a grave responsibility to ensure people-centered democracy and usher the people's
지금까지
era.
한국의 정치 사회를 지탱해왔던
Until now, elite-centered politics and state-centered governance supported Korean politics. Now that such the system has been revealed, it's now that Korea creates a governance system, people-centered democracy. The Moon administration has defined the vision of the state as a nation of the people, ROK of justice. This means we aim to have citizens participate in governance rather than elite-centered governance, and strive to reflect the views of the people in governments through civic discussion. An ROK of justice aims to establish a new Korea by accomplishing the following national tasks: bestow fair opportunity to all, eradicate corruption, and eliminate discrimination. As you see in the slide, the Moon administration's core values are equal opportunity, fair process, and just outcomes. We have 5 governance objectives and 100 governance tasks. Now I will explain the governance objectives and tasks in relation to President Moon's media policy. Governance objective is promote freedom of expression and independence of the media. This is what the government is pursuing. The third objective is guarantee the healthy development of the media. It has been selected as an important government's task. The Korea Communications Commission is a central body under the Office of the President and has defined a policy vision for the broadcasting and communication sector according with the vision and objectives of the Moon administration. The KCC's policy vision is people-centered broadcasting and communications. I will explain the 4 policy objectives to the Moon administration's media-related governance objectives I just mentioned. The first task is freedom of expression and independence of the media. This policy task grew out of the criticism of the deterioration of the public interest and fairness of broadcasting and the global scrutiny of the decline of freedom of press in Korea under the last administration. The Moon administration is pursuing the following to ensure the independence and fairness of public broadcasters, which are under the government's influence. Broadcasting Board of Directors create a programming commission with legally binding power and mandatory programming guidelines to secure the independence of reporting, production, and programming, which is central to media independence. For internet freedom of expression, we will transition to an autonomous regulatory system by 2021, reduce public regulations on internet content. According to the World Freedom Index, in 2018, Korea ranked of 180 countries 43, moving up 27 spots from 70th in 2016. The government will continue to strive to improve this ranking to enter the top 30 by 2020. We will continue to make efforts to this end. The second governance task I will explain is a healthy media development. The influence of media on people's lives is increasing in our modern society. The need for media education and desire for viewer participation in broadcasting is growing. Further, there is destabilization of the foundations of local broadcasting in terms of finance and personnel, of unfair practices that take advantage of advantageous positions in the media. Important than ever before that we create a media ecosystem that includes coexistence. So the government of Korea will take the following measures: strengthen media welfare through a promotion plan for media education and expand community media centers to act as media education hubs. It will also promote local broadcasting by local broadcasting production and distribution. Finally, to grow the media industry, the government will also diversify overseas export of Hallyu and Korean wave content and support content producers and small businesses in UHD convergence. The Korean government will also promote international cooperation through co-production agreements with Asian and other countries around the world in the field of broadcasting. In particular, with Asian, ASEAN, and Latin countries, Korea will export Korea's educational broadcasting model and continue to support and improve the welfare of the people in these countries. Moving forward, the Korean government will spare no effort in continuing to act as a responsible member of international society. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Ko. Can I now invite Mr. Q. Kanhira to make his presentation? Thank you.
Excellencies, ladies, gentlemen, dear friends, this morning I already make some presentation about the practical and legal way we deal with in Cambodia. Now, allow me to have some word about how we deal with social media, or we call a new technology of information. You know, well, when we get the emergence of new technology, or we will call social media, everybody was very happy. We think that now the people, we have a choice to of information. They can have all angle of any news. But in fact, it's not true, because with this influx of information, the people cannot digest everything. That's why they made the choice. And they made the choice not according to the credibility of the source. They made the choice according to their tendency, according to their mood. What I say that they made it because just to say in their comfort zone. And this is really dangerous, because at that time, with this situation, the people don't get a variety or diversity of opinion. They just collect the opinion of the people they feel that look the same, have the same opinion as them. And this is a very dangerous for a young society like Cambodia, who just emerged from the war. The second point is because in Cambodia, we just finished, we just end the war for 2 decades of the war, and the quality of education is not very good. You know, remember well that many people, I can say that 80% of our children were killed, and that's why this gap of knowledge, this gap of tradition transfer is very important. And after that, with the influx of news through social media, the problem of the people trying to just pick up opinion or knowledge from social media. Now with just few words, and they know that they feel that they know everything, and this is really dangerous. So after that, this kind of short-circuiting the knowledge, or what we call a cognitive process of analyzing the fact, would be very dangerous when they become the leader in the future. And this is the 2 points that are very important. And also with this situation of this kind of social mind, this kind of short-circuiting the knowledge, we have the problem of fake news. And this in Cambodia, like in many countries in the world, we don't have all law or jurisdiction to how to prevent this, how to make it. In Cambodia, we have also this problem of fake news. But because fortunately, Cambodia is not in here, because we just 15 million, not 1 billion, and we have a lot of And that's why it's easier to make what you call to remedy to all things. It's not perfect, but this is what we cope with that. It means that at each level of administration, there must be an information officer who try to reply timely to any fake news dealing with their area. And this is the way we can cope to make it. Because in Cambodia, we don't consider social media any or news online as a real media. It means that you can post fake news, you can post anything, and no problem, because for this we don't have the law dealing with them. And that's why by creating the information officer at each level, national and sub-level nation, we can reply timely to the fake news. Not perfect, but this one, as a small country, as a young society, we deal with the fake news. This is what I can share my experience about social media, how we deal with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Q. Can I now ask Mr. Hasanullah Inu to make his presentation?
Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. Namaskar. Here with us, His Excellency, Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad, and of course with us, Her Excellency, the Minister, Shri Jubin Ilani, with us, Minister from Canarit, Sanseko. We have here Justice Prasad, whom I met several times in Bangladesh, and of course the moderator, Mr. Iyer. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak in this session. First, let me say that I fully go with His Excellency Ravi Shankar Prasad. He very intelligently and articulated the problems we are facing in the present day situation. And the bottom line is that we are for democracy, and democracy flourishes with a free media. But there are challenges, and those challenges are to be looked into so that we can ensure the flourishing media and also the expanding cyberspace. Having that, let me say that it may sound ironical, but it is true that the stories of life do not care for policies, nor do they follow any rule of law. Every life has its own course and immense possibilities, and laws, rules, or policies are made to maintain a smooth environment where every life can bloom at its best without harming others. The same way, media regulation policies, I don't like the word regulation, I say media management policies are made to provide guidance on which stories are to be told and which are not to be broadcasted, which stories would encourage blooming of life and which would do the opposite, which stories would help people to overcome the existing challenges and prepare them to face the future, and which do not. And to work out policies accordingly, we have to look where we stand. In Bangladesh, and in Asia and the world. Before 6 major challenges, I said in the morning: poverty, gender disparity, terrorism, ICT revolution, climate change, and even globalization. Media, being the borderless tool, must address these challenges in order to maintain growth of its own and of this civilization. And our policies must enable media to act according to the need of the time. Distinguished guests, to give example from my country, Bangladesh, I would say, with the expansion of broadcast media, we adopted the National Broadcast Policy 2014. But we do have constitutional guarantee in Article 13 for the freedom of press. And also, to ensure free flow of information, we adopted Right to Information Act in 2009 under the leadership of Her Excellency the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, where it is stipulated that all organizations, local and foreign, operating in Bangladesh are bound to provide information as and when asked by the citizens and any people, any person. A quasi-judiciary body, Information Commission, has been established to look after the issue on them. And for the media, we trained our journalists on these issues so that they can utilize this act to have data and information from the government bodies and non-government bodies. Moreover, besides our Printing and Publication Act, we firm steps for welfare of the journalist, because it should be the way to ask media to do a lot without looking after their welfare. So the government of Her Excellency Sheikh Hasina created a journalist welfare fund. In addition, we continue revision of the prescribed wages for the journalists in print media, and also trying to adopt a policy to do the same for the broadcast media. Having said that, I turn a bit to the ICT. The story of the ICT revolution is the story of the turning the globe into a transparent glass house where you can see everything. But in the glass house, there are women, children, there is institutions, private and governmental and state machineries, social values, private life and personal lives. We do have alternatives to keeping the cyberspace free from these criminals. Here is two challenges. One is a legal challenge, another is a technical challenge. How to ensure these glass expanding and to continue, and at the same time, how to ensure the security of the state, people, women and children. That is a challenge to be addressed by the peoples across the country and the world. As online journalism is on a huge rise, we in Bangladesh, we accepted that and we adopted a policy, online newspapers policy. So that policy is guiding the online boom. You would appreciate we are updating the laws from the ICT Act 2009, and we are moving towards two very important laws. One is Digital Security Act to combat cyber criminals, and the next is a Broadcast law. Headed by that law will be implemented by a Broadcast Commission. So these laws are going to be enacted very soon, but in these laws will never conflict with the freedom of expression and freedom of the media. With the growth of technology, media has expanded its horizon, crossing boundaries of countries, driven by the time where the media can prove to be the most effective weapon for mass liberation from poverty, gender gap, terrorism and militancy. At the same time, it is media that can show the way to people how to cope with ICT revolution, climate change and fast pace globalization. Ladies and gentlemen, let us join hands to work together in closer cooperation. Let us increase dialogues, exchanges, expertise, so that our broadcasters can play the biggest role in this juncture of civilization to lead us to a sustainable, clean, green, peaceful, prosperous, digital, and evenly balanced globalized world. Thanks to AIBD, thanks to the government of the host country India, thank you all very much for listening to me. Jai Bangla.
Honorable Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad, Minister of Law and Justice, Electronics and IT, Mrs. Smriti Irani, Minister of Information and Textiles, Honorable Mr. Hasnul Haq Inu, the Minister of Information Bangladesh, His Excellency Dr. Kanarath, Mr. Seyko, Dr. Abbas Naseri Tahri, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I am grateful to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to speak to you. But at the outset, I would like to share the great feeling the Minister of Bangladesh has for India. As I said to you, we met several times in Dhaka. And what he fondly remembers, the help the government of India gave in the freedom movement of Bangladesh. He himself is a freedom fighter, member of the Mukti Bahini, and I told that he remained in India during those periods for a long, long time. That gives us a great feeling. We are here to discuss about a topic that is regulation, media ethics. Regulation is a dirty term in an open society, and many believe that the very idea of regulation is antithesis to freedom. According to them, it is for the readers to judge it. Many, however, believe that peer review would act as the best cut on unethical practices. It gels with Mahatma philosophy. Mahatma said, media is a great power, but just as unchained torrent of water submerges the whole countryside and devastates crops, even so, uncontrolled pen serves but to destroy. If the control is from without, it proves more poisonous than want of control. It can be profitable, according to Mahatma, when exercised from within. Mahatma Gandhi said those words when media was in emission mode. Is that true today? Evidence and human experience today show that it has largely been a futile exercise and ineffective. Journalists are not angels. They are part and parcel of the society, and they are vulnerable to use their pen for personal gain, although they become popes and guardians overnight and tend to divert. Being voice of the voiceless and crusader for truth, journalists many times come in conflict with a state functionary. Media is required to attempt to provide an answer. Questioning is the easy part of the job. Talk about the ethical standards, ethical values of people of different country and reason are not one and the same. The universally accepted social ethics, Satyam Bruhat, Priyam Bruhat, Na Bruhat, Satyam Apriyam, meaning thereby speak the truth which is pleasant, but do not speak the truth which is unpleasant, not apply to the media. Many times media are, and the difference is that what they publish what interests the people. According to me, this is a fallacious argument. In my opinion, they should publish what is in the interest of the public, not interest the public. Media practitioners constantly endeavor to expand the boundaries of their freedom, just as those imbued with the authority attempt to constrict it. It is an unending debate. No matter how liberal you are, one has to face the fact that some news is best not reported. And a startling disclosure by a senior journalist before the US Congress proves this point. And he said, in my opinion, the function of a newspaper is to suppress as well as to publish. I know that in my exceedingly long career, suppress as many items as I have written for publication. I have no apology to offer for it. On the whole, I am proud. On the whole, I am prouder of the items that I have suppressed than those I have published. While in many instances, the items I sent to the graveyard measured up to donors' standard of human interest, but their publication would have wrought injustice to one or would have wrought pain to some poor soul who did not deserve it. Therefore, so far I am of the opinion that so far the regulation of the media is concerned, it has to be blended. Peers plus the independent person of impeccable integrity. I am of the opinion that the India's model of regulation of the press is one of the best in the world. I have stated various parts how the media is regulated in various parts of the world. Some are absolutely PS body, funded by the media itself. It looks very ideal. One of the members of that particular council told me that there was a complaint against a very huge, large media house in that country, who used to support that council financially. After the complaint was lodged, no was given to the council. I must explain to you the India model. The India's model is that there is a body called the Press Council of India. It is created by a statute, an act of parliament. It consists of 28 members and the chairman. The chairman by convention, not by law, by convention, had always been a retired judge of the Supreme Court of India. And ladies and gentlemen, you know, the Supreme Court of India, people say, is more independent than what it should be. The Indian Supreme Court has proved its independence for the last 70 years, and people realize their independence. And chairman of the Press Council has necessarily, by convention, to be a judge of the Supreme Court. There are 20 journalists in that. Out of 20, 13 are the working journalists, 7 are the editors. They are nominated by the associations of journalists and the working. 3 come from various statutory bodies like the Council of India, the Sahitya Academy, and the University Grants Commission, and 5 come from the Parliament, 3 from the Lok Sabha, 2 from the Rajya Sabha, nominated by the Speaker and the Vice Chairman of the Rajya Sabha. And it is this body who has been with the duty to maintain the ethics and the standard of journalism. Its fund is generated by the council itself by levy of fee, and therefore it's not influenced by any other consideration than the merit of the case. I commend that you may consider the Press Council of India as a basic model for regulation of the press all over the world. Thank you very much. Thank you for hearing me with patience.
That are still quite useful for us, at least to cast a glance at in the context of Asia. And I thought we could probably spend a few minutes talking about those before we go to the floor.
Your mic.
Am I audible? Yeah, sorry. One of the things that I thought we could talk about is intellectual property rights, which in the context of the media has featured quite prominently in a number of countries. And I understand in particular that Bangladesh has been concerned with this in recent times, and that there are some initiatives that are being proposed in that area. So let's start with Mr. Haq, and then to see if anybody else wants to contribute to that discussion. It's just a question of finding out what in relation to the protection of intellectual property rights as they relate to the media.
Thank you very much. The present day there are another problem, the problem of piracy. So Bangladesh is faced with the problem of piracy, and at the same time it goes with intellectual property. So Bangladesh is addressing these 2 issues. So Piracy Act and the protection of the intellectual property rights. So having said that, the present global phenomena, if we want to protect the persons coming up with bright ideas and innovations in the third world countries or Asia Pacific zone, so we need to protect them by enacting a law on intellectual property rights and also to protect the, to counter piracy. Thank you very much.
I wonder if any of the others might want Mr. Prasad.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, in India we have very robust Copyright Act, and we have also improved that. But the real problem is coming patent rights vis-a-vis digital platform. That is still a work in progress. And I would like to flag all the friends of Asia and other present here. How the problem emerges. There is a basic platform created by a innovator. And based upon that, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6 other innovations are made, which are completely new in character. Who will get the right? That right should be given to all, or the subsequent innovator, or the original innovator must take all the patents. It is an area of debate. What is important is that patent rights vis-a-vis digital platform is an area where more dialogue is needed and more consensus is needed. And when the digital platform will expand more and more, I think that is an issue which requires more urgent attention. On the issue of piracy, I am completely the Excellency, the Minister from Bangladesh. We need to work in a holistic manner. Piracy always creates ingenuity and creativity, so we have to work together.
Mr. Ko, I wonder if you might have any insights to offer, given that Korea, a major content creator.
예, 앞서 그 휴식 시간에도 잠깐 얘기 나눴습니다만은, 그 한국은 이제 초기에 콘텐츠 산업 활성화를 위해서 정부에서 많은 지원을 했습니다.
The Korean government creation in the early stages in the movie sector and also in broadcasting sector, and the government provided support and also funding. Now, though, the movie industry and the content production has been raised to a certain level, so rather than have direct support, it is more supporting in terms of facilities or institutions. I know mentioned the issue of IP and copyrights. Before Korea, under the WTA scheme, it was Korea was seen as a country that infringes on IPs, but now Korea has now grown to be a country that fully protects IP and copyright from other countries. In Korea, there are almost no cases of infringement of copyright or others. I can tell you that now. However, reversely, Korean content and Korean software is being infringed upon by other countries. We see these cases of copyright infringement in other countries of Korean content. So we are asking for cooperation to protect our copyrights. The Korean government continues to cooperate with foreign governments so that internationally and domestically, the IPs can be continued to be protected, especially in the online and mobile platforms. We are continuing to strive to protect IP and copyrights, and we're cooperating with other countries on. In terms of privacy and data protection, in Korea, the EU will soon enact the GDPR later this month. And countries in the world, including Korea and Asian countries, are responding to this and taking interest. In Korea, with respect to the GDPR, the KCC and the MSIT are closely cooperating with other countries, and I hope we can continue to share any necessary information on the matter.
Thank you. Dr. Kiu, what's been the experience of Cambodia in the protection of intellectual property rights?
Well, piracy is rife in the region, and we have a law to protect IP, but mostly the authority to rely on the what you call the complaint from the producer. But here from time to time, you know that the Korean film are very popular. Sometimes we have also the problem with this kind of content, but now for any TV, sign a contract with TV, with Korean, they have to inform the Ministry of Information, and the Ministry of Information will what's called publicize the news about that to avoid that any theft of intellectual property and contract. We have it, but mostly not so very effective, and mostly we have to rely from the complaint of the original producer.
Thank you. One other issue that often is raised in forums like these is the effects of what most people would consider to be a positive thing, namely the democratization of the media. But it's often argued that the democratization has also had a downside in terms of trivialization of the media, particularly of media content, and it's expressed sometimes in starker terms as a dumbing down of output, particularly on television. I was wondering whether we might be able to speak a little bit about that. I don't know who will take that question first.
Let me take it. We are proud of democracy. I differ with your whole assessment that democracy tend to trivialize. As I said, always debate, discussion, at times chaotic, are integral to democracy. If you crush that, then you are killing the soul of democracy. And let us trust the wisdom of the players in a democracy to address this concern. Why I am saying so? If you trivialize, you cannot survive too long. Many platforms of television whose job was to trivialize, they made hay for a few months, and ultimately they have to become sober. Let us trust the inner strength of democracy, the players, the public opinion, of outrage which they provoke, and ultimately that becomes the corrective. That's how I see it.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to take that on? Ms. Prasad, do you have any views on this?
I have to, sorry for saying that. I think all the players need to recognize that free media can play only and only in a democracy. The day you become a closed society, the freedom of media goes. And see the experience of as to how, I wish to compliment the minister, India played a role in the creation of Bangladesh. Today Bangladesh is really going by the concept of free media. And I don't wish to make any one flag and see the former part of Bangladesh from which they became, is the media completely free there. Therefore we have to respect that. That's how I feel it.
I entirely agree with what the Minister of Law and Justice said. Actually, it's for the people to judge. And ultimately, in the long run, if it is trivial, the people will reject that. And therefore, we must have trust in the people of the country, the sovereign, what we call to be the sovereign. Sovereignness, and the sovereign is the people, and we must trust the people. I entirely agree with Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad.
Thank you. I think we'll
한 말씀만 드려도 될까요?
Sorry. Please go ahead.
네, 네, 저도 기본적으로 동의합니다. 민주주의 국가에서 언론과 사상의 자유는 민주주의 체제를 유지하고 작동하는 데 있어서는 핵심적인 요소인 게 분명합니다. 그러나 여기에서 이제 또 하나 간과해서는 안 될 게 지금 그 미디어의 역작용 그리고 SNS가 이런 그 미디어 역작용이 사실은 이제 여러 나라에서 관심의 대상이 되고 있는 것도 부정할 수는 없습니다. 이러한 문제를 이제 시장에서 자율적으로 또 민주적인 방법으로 해결하기 위해서는 그 똑똑한 이용자가 전제돼야 된다 이렇게
We need to
생각을
have
합니다.
educated users in this new media and social media
정부가
environment.
주도적으로 하는 게 아니고
In Korea, it's not done by the government, but it's nexus with civic organizations and the people. So I mentioned the media centers in Korea and education programs in Korea so that media and content can be well understood by people, and furthermore, so that the can create their own content, and through media that we can share and exchange with the people. These policies in place in Korea. So we need to raise the use of media by people, which is raises the awareness of democracy awareness, and this is the efforts that we're taking from the Korean government side.
Thank you. That's right. The minister wants to be excused. We still have about 10 minutes, so if there are any questions from the floor, I was told that we should give an opportunity to delegates. So I'm just wondering, is there a roving mic that we can use?
Yeah. Oh.
And if you could just identify yourself and keep your question short.
Yeah. My name is Rafiquzaman. I am from Bangladesh. I am Director General, National Institute of Mass Communication. First of all, I'd like to pay my full respects and respect to the honorable speakers sitting in the dais. And I fully agree with the opinion passed. They said the holistically should be seen, and the Piracy Act should be there. Strong Piracy Act should be there. But the thing is, everybody says there should be coordinations, there should be holistically should be seen. As we are talking about the Asia Media Summit, it is not it's my opinion. Where should we start, and who starts this? Where should be the platform? On what platform or the framework the participating countries start working, so that the difference of the different acts like the Right to Information Act, Piracy Act, the Press Council Act, and the other acts involving in the media transparency and the media freedom, so that it will not collide each other. So there should be, again, by this Asia Summit, AIBD could be seen, and the legal framework or the acceptable framework to the participating countries that could put pressure on the governments so that the related laws and acts should also be revised. And if we can do that, I think the democracy established and accountability established, and that also leads to the real development of the respective countries, what the Honorable Minister India governments has said. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Does any panel member want to respond to that? I take that as a statement. Yes. All right. Any other question? Yes.
Thank you. I am Om Prakash Kimire from Nepal. I have just one query to Honorable Minister of Bangladesh. He has very specifically the 6 challenges like poverty, ICT, climate change, gender discrimination, and so on. Could you please share your opinion and experience? What is the role and significance of media regulations policies to cope these challenges? Where do you find the media regulation policies in this regard? I would be happy if you share the experience of whole or Asia, because we are talking about Asia Media Summit. Otherwise, I'll be also happy if you can share the experience of Bangladesh. Thank you.
Actually, we don't have much time, but the question is very good. The first thing to tackle the challenges, the major 6 challenges, there are 2 actors. One is government actor, another is people. So when the government is acting to reduce a poverty or gender disparity, they are coming up with policies and actions or financial interventions. Here, if the media comes into play, then implementation policy is more transparent and more pro-people. Number one. Number two, if you look from the other way, from the people's aspect, the media makes the people more the whole things about the poverty and disparity, so that the people can act more positively. So here, the media, for example, the Information Act in Bangladesh has helped the media and the people to make the government more accountable and transparent. By that, the implementation policy is better than the previous years. One example. So I can come up with other examples where the media is focusing on the actions of the government and the international agencies in Bangladesh who are responsible for climate change and economic activities. So media definitely, if is focused and more active and positive, then it is good for the society and we can tackle the challenges more properly. For that, from our side, from the government side, we have come up with booklets, how to address the climate change, how to address the disaster, how to address the accidents, how to address the poverty. So, number of handbooks for the journalists to act for that. And next, let me conclude. Well, for the last 3,000 years, when the modern state is gradually emerging, the major question, who will guard the guardians? The question has not been answered as yet. The great Lenin said, who purifies? The state purifies the people, or people purifies the state? He in his lifetime could not answer that question. We here in politics and state machineries, we are answering the questions, but this question is to be answered, who guard the guardians? Mind that the state presupposes the people, the persons have a tendency towards mischief doing. That is why the state comes up with laws. So, in democracy, in constitution, in laws, we say, well, you are guaranteed freedom or so and so freedom, but with certain restrictions, etc., etc., in every law of the country. So I say, what is democracy? Democracy is a mosquito net. You sit in a soft bed under a mosquito net, you can see, the others can see, but no insects can come and bite you. Thank you very much.
I'll just add one thing to the question of a friend from Nepal. How media can play a role as far as sustainable development is concerned. And so you come from Nepal, you can also learn from the experience I'm going to cite. Management is important to take care of disasters which come, earthquake, because of land, other etc. Now, you need to construct roads, you need to erect dams, etc. But what the media has been doing is to flagging beforehand, this is very fragile area. You have to be careful. Disaster can strike, and it did strike. Now what happened is, these media reports counsel the government disaster management team to become more proactive, more decisions, and therefore save more lives. I think this is a very particular example as to how media reporting can also advise for course, and that's how we need to build upon. This will be an important milestone in the quest of climate changes and also saving lives.
Thank you, Mr. Prasad. I'm afraid we'll have to close there, but hopefully we'll be able to continue over lunch. All that remains for me to do is to thank all the panelists and to you, the audience, for your patience. Thank you very much.
Before you leave the day.
The first plenary session on media regulation policies, ethics, rules and laws concludes with some thought-inspiring addresses and conversation by an eminent panel of speakers. The summit will continue to play host to many more meaningful discussions, but right now we take your leave. Thank you very much for being with us. Namaskar.